Some reflections at the end of the day. The end of the day, it's staying lighter outside. Some reflections, the end of the day. And my reflections, after having put in some work on painting, sculpt paintings, something that looks like that, as you see behind me, unraveling the mystery, unraveling things. And what does it mean to unravel, to understand, to be able to comprehend something that seems difficult to understand? And I sometimes wonder how it is that people who say all the right things can miss it so often. And this is unfortunately something I'm thinking about. You know, I put different people on when I work. I put on my favorite music or whatever that might be, or not so favorite, to see if I like something that I didn't know that I liked. And I was listening to a guy called Max Egan who says, hope is a scam. Right, Max Egan says a lot of the right things about the unveiling of this reality as we're proceeding 5G. The nature of our existence is being herded into a kind of what he calls a control system, which we have to resist. It all makes a lot of sense. I mean, people make a lot of sense, but how can they miss it? How can they miss it? And I just like to say that unraveling something has nothing to do with what's going on outside, but it has more to do with what is going on inside of each one of us. So the idea of listening to more and more people who appear to be saying all the right things, telling us something about the nature of this reality, and there are some fabulous people that give it a stab, that give it a go, and it begins to feel like what it is that we're inside of, this fishbowl that is something that we're incapable of perceiving. And what is it that allows us to get some sense, some perspective on what it is that we're living in? I'll call you right back.
Okay, but remember to go to the store.
I'll call you right back.
Okay, bye.
So my thoughts at the end of the day, as I have to go to the store and pick up some things, what is unraveling for me is something that is not so much of the external world, which truly is completely, continuously, not completely, but continuously being added to by the more people we listen to that say the right things, but always seem to miss it. This is what I'm finding. This is what I'm realizing and thinking. How is it? How can this possibly work? And the way it works, as I've just said, is that by the understanding I bring to this channel to you, possibly, is that I'm not unraveling anything out there, but it's inside. And as this falls into place, I have a much greater confidence in being able to navigate this experience, whatever that is, whether it's under a complete and total omnipotent being's control on the level of what religions always refer to as, well, just subjugate yourself to the will of the omnipotent being, and we're the interpreters. We know what the omnipotent being wants. How do you know what the omnipotent being wants? It's because we made her, him, it. We are the ones that created the omnipotent being, which is why they would know. How could anybody know the intent behind an omnipotent being that is all everythingness? How could lowly individuals, we can't even remember our shopping list. I have to be reminded. I would have forgotten my shopping list. So at the end of the day, the reflection that I have, and to say, a person like Max Egan to say hope is a scam, and he kind of explained it, and he said that hope without action is really of no value to anyone. And what I would like to refer to is, outside of the idea, yes, of course, engaging, acting, that a feeling in all of us that I find to be extremely valuable is connected to my aspirations. And aspirations are also tied to a sense, a feeling of hope. There is something inside of me that says, if I proceed a certain way, I can in some way expect a result. Not out there, but inside. And what Egan refers to is he is totally focused on the external. Everything is external. People are continuously functioning on the external. And my only argument, okay, this is my final point at the end of the day, that whatever it is that you present to me, if it doesn't include something that is so significant and important in my life, in my day-to-day life, that affects everyone, like a universal thing, something that is happening universally. And it can be whatever it is that you've understood within the concept of the reality that you feel you're in. I have said that we are under incredible threat. We are in perilous times from a lot of different sources. We're being attacked in a world that may or not be a simulation from the omnipotent being. Does space exist? Did we go to the moon? Did one bullet kill Kennedy? Did box cutter guys take down buildings? I am just saying that there are events that do occur that make a huge difference on every single human being and now every single life form, which is the nuclear pollution that has been unleashed over the last 70 years in all its different manifestations, but primarily now through Fukushima. So people who are incapable of grasping this phenomenal event that has occurred, that may say the right thing, to me, just miss it. They miss it. There has to be a reflection, some kind of a connection to this thing. Unless I'm totally out to lunch and totally fabricating things in my mind, and which makes me part of this reality, this external reality, which is really being manipulated, thrown left, right, and center. We have really no part in extracting ourselves from this in any kind of way. That, in that case, well, just, I don't know, do whatever it is that you feel you need to do to make yourself feel better, I suppose. This is what I'm saying when they always miss it, because it comes down to externalizing everything without actually seeing what it is that the external world has brought to our doorstep. The greatest, most significant event in the history of all events that have occurred that threaten all life. I mean, if this reality is, if we're attached to this thing called life, then, this is obviously important. And I'm not discouraging or saying anyone should not have this fight or that fight. Pick your fight. But it has to somehow lead toward this overarching awareness in some way. And my last note about this reality, which is completely fabricated for the most part for us. We're listening to people that actually have not our best interest at heart. A person apparently died today called Stephen Hawking. He was 76 years old. And this reality has taught me, I've listened to the white coats that have said, if you get Lou Gehrig's or ALS, this is an affliction, a nervous, our nervous system is attacked and we lose control, motor control, our lungs don't work properly. This is a very nasty, nasty disease. And apparently, according to the white coats, once you're diagnosed, you have usually a couple of years, if you're lucky, 5 years. Now, isn't this extraordinary? This fellow, Stephen Hawking, was 76. He was diagnosed when he was in his early 20s. That would make it like close to 50 years that this guy had a disease that every other ordinary mortal it's fatal within 5 years. How do you explain this? So here is another person that has been propagated within this realm of what we consider to be the real world, the black holes and the enormous, incredible explosions. Out of nothing comes something. They can't even produce a dust particle, never mind explaining all the matter and all the laws in the universe, all of a sudden appearing out of nothing. And well, they call it the Big Bang, and then everything else is explained after that, which is it's a phenomenal leap of faith that these white coats who say we know reality always tell us. So that one of these white coats has just died apparently, and he had Lou Gehrig's for almost 50 years. Unheard of, people, unheard of. So I'm surprised nobody has actually mentioned this. Well, the people, maybe some people have that I listen to, but absolutely phenomenal. Reflections at the end of the day about the real world. And what is the world that we conquer? What is the world we understand, which will ultimately have a huge effect on what appears or what is the external world. When we realize what it means that we produce in our day-to-day life that makes us more aware of who in fact we are. This inner being, this inner thing that is going on, it's not just like the meat and potatoes and the nuts and bolts that keep stuff together. It's something else. This level of communication that I have with, through this medium or through my work, this has nothing to do with the physical nuts and bolts of existence. It's something else. And becoming masters, that's a real extrapolation. Becoming more at ease with this notion is actually going to allow us to at least give ourselves a chance in this reality, whatever that might be. And you can hear in my words, I am less and less convinced. I've always said the world is not what it appears to be. And it's not just because some deviants who are trying to control us. Of course, Max Egan, of course. But there is a much more profound mechanism at work here that none of us really understand. And the only way we're going to get there is through this internal battle that we face every day. And the best battle we can fight is to be within encompassing the rightness of things, whatever that may be. And I think everyone really has a notion of what this might be, the rightness of everything. So when you listen to too many people, you're going to be up shit's creek because most of them all miss it. Very few actually have hit the nail. They have their fight, they can talk, and they can say things about the deep state and whatever you want to talk about, but they understand the significance of the overarching problem that we face, which is the annihilation of all life on Earth through this nuclear poison. And just a thought at the end of the day.